Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Kate and I am the creator of Rosie Dolls by Kate. This is my first YouTube video and it's a tutorial to go with my first pattern. Whoop. This is the Rosebud doll that is in my shop, but I wanted to show you guys how to make it so that you could get the pattern and make her. She is so cute and so toddler friendly. You know, we don't have any chokables, no buttons, just elastic, and you can sew the bow on or you can just tie it to a little elastic to go around her little space buns. They're so cute. But also she's got her arms sewn into the neck. So these arms aren't going anywhere, which is unique for a cloth doll. And we all know how hard toddlers can be on their toys. So I really think this gives this doll a very durable quality. So go ahead and hit the like button if you like this video. Subscribe if you want to see more tutorials that are going to be coming, because I've got some exciting videos coming, y'all. I've got the Pioneer doll coming. I've got the Anne of Green Gables doll coming, and many more. So subscribe and come with me on this journey, and let's do this. All right, here we go. Okay, so here are the materials I use, and you can pause it and take a look. It's all pretty simple and straightforward, but I do use hemostats for turning my pieces right side out, and those have been a lifesaver. I also use upholstery thread to attach the space buns. It's very strong and it works great. So we're going to get our fabric out. I just use quilter's cotton for the skin tone, the leggings, and the skirt. And for the hair, I use flannel, which you can also use felt. And I've been wanting to experiment with some other fuzzy and furry fabrics for the hair. So maybe that'll be some future video ideas. Now we're just going to cut out all the pieces to the pattern. You can just cut right on the line until you're all done. Now we're going to cut out the arm pieces. We're going to start by facing our strips of fabric towards each other and just sewing across the top edge. I leave probably a 1/4 an inch seam allowance. And then we're going to open those up and fold them so that each fabric is facing itself. The top half of this is going to be the sleeve of the arm. So you can make the sleeve as long or as short as you want. If you want it to be longer, you just move the pattern piece up towards the top edge. If you want the sleeve to be shorter, you move it down towards the bottom edge. Okay, we want to make sure these are level with each other. And then we're going to trace our pattern pieces. And when you sew these pieces, you want to sew right on the line. And then we'll cut out afterwards. I love to sew first, cut later. And we want to make sure to leave that top edge open so that we can stuff the arm. So we're going to cut these out. Be sure to leave your seam allowance at the top edge as well. And I'm just putting little snips along the curved edge of the hand so that when I turn it, it will turn smoothly. And now we're going to trace and cut out the legs. I had to slow it down right here just so that we could all laugh together at the claw. My hand. I go into claw mode and I'm really getting focused on, on the project. So now we're tracing the legs and we're going to pin those. And again, we're just going to sew right on the line, leaving that short edge at the top open again so that we can stuff the legs. All right, now that we've gotten all that sewn and cut out, we're gonna turn these right side out using these trusty hemostats. I have to tell you guys, I mean, if you're gonna be doing a lot of doll making, get yourself some of these because it makes it so much easier to turn these pieces right side out. You can just use the little dowel that comes in your stuffing bag, but I just love these things. And now you're going to stuff the arms and legs, and just make sure you stuff them pretty firmly towards the ends to smooth out those seams. So now we have them all stuffed. We're going to sew along the very top edge of each arm and each leg. All right, and now we're moving on to the body of the doll. We're going to turn our fabric facing itself. And we're going to trace that body pattern piece. And sadly, we don't get to sew before we cut for this piece. We're going to leave ourselves a seam allowance of about 1/4 of an inch cutting this out. So then I'm going to pull the pieces apart and grab the legs, and we're going to turn them upside down facing this body pattern piece and pin them about 1/4 of an inch from the outer edge on each side. So there, we'll turn the legs downward and then place the other body piece facing the first piece. And I'm going to go ahead and pin the edges on this. And once I get this all pinned, I'm going to sew down the sides, down each side. And I just want to make sure that I sew right alongside that leg, but don't actually sew over the leg. And now I'm inserting the arms. And I'm just going to place that arm with the side seam of the body right down the middle and pin it in place. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. That side seam of the body is just going to go right down the middle of that arm. And then I'm going to sew that in place just pretty close to the edge. Now I'm getting my flannel hair fabric to cut out the back of the head and the front hairline. And I'm cutting right along that bottom edge, but then I'm leaving a seam allowance around the rest of the curve of the head. And same thing here around the curve of the head, I'm leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I just eyeball it because the line is there for me to sew on. And then I cut along the line for the hairline. But yeah, you should have a line drawn as your guide for where you're going to sew, so you can just eyeball the seam allowance, and that's how I do it. So and then I'm going to cut out the front of the head with my skin toned fabric. And once again, I'm cutting along the line at the bottom edge, but I'm going to leave a seam allowance around the rest of the piece. Now I flipped that piece of fabric over so that the front of the fabric that's going to be the face is facing me. And then I placed the hair piece on top of it with the line side facing down, because we don't want to see any of these lines after we've sewn. We want them to be our guide for sewing. So I'm going to do a little zigzag stitch along the edge of that hairline. And once that's done, I'm going to just do a normal stitch to make some hair kind of grooves and hold that fabric in place. So you can kind of see the grooves I sewed there. And then I'm going to place the other flannel piece facing that piece and pin it in place. And then we're going to sew along the edge and leave the bottom edge open, because that's going to be the neck. When you sew the headpiece, you want to use as small a stitch as possible, and that keeps it from fraying. And now I'm just snipping along that curved edge. And this is just going to give you a much smoother edge on your seam once you've turned the head and have stuffed it. The snips help that curve more naturally and avoid any bunching when you stuff it. And now I'm just turning the head right side out, and I'm just running my thumb along the edge to smooth that out. You just want to make sure you push that seam out as much as possible to get that smooth edge before you continue. Okay, then I'm going to take my body piece and turn the head upside down and just work it into the neck. And this is tricky, so just take your time. You want to line up the side seams of the head with the side seams of the body, and then pin those together. coming around to the other side and matching up those side seams again, and pinning just right on the arms before I put any other pins. And once we have it all pinned, we're just going to sew along that neck edge and leave maybe a little more than 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. We just want to make sure that the stitch that we placed on the arm, at the top of the arm, isn't showing once we turn it right side out. So we're sewing around that edge, and now we're going to turn it right side out. And there we have the body all done and ready to stuff. And I'm getting rid of all the little threads and so now we're going to stuff, and we start with the head, obviously, and I always get some stuffing in the middle of the head, and then I start to work stuffing around the edge with my thumb. You can see me doing that, and I always say stuff till you think you can't stuff anymore, and then stuff a little more. You just want it stuffed pretty firmly so that those edges smooth out, and once you have it the shape you want, you can start on the body. And I've always said that stuffing is like sculpting. You know, you have to work the stuffing into the shape you want it to be, and sometimes it just takes time. You take your time and go slow and get it just the right shape before you close your doll up. And I leave a little bit of space at the bottom so that I can pin the bottom closed and sew it with my machine. And now that we're done with the body, we're going to move on to the skirt. And I'm placing the short end of my skirt pattern piece on the fold, and I'm just tracing around the edge with my pencil. And then we're going to cut that out right on the line. And I'm going to use a French seam to close up the edge of the skirt. So I'm going to sew along the edge with the right sides facing out, and then I'm going to turn it wrong side out, and I should have pressed this along the seam, but you're probably going to want to press that, and then sew again to make that raw edge disappear. And then once you've done that, you're going to turn it right side out, and then you're going to lay that flat and sew down to hold that edge down. And there you have it, a French seam, no raw edges. We're going to hem it first. I'm just turning it once, about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to do a zigzag stitch for the hem. And then for the waist, I'm going to press 1/8 of an inch. And then turn it again and press 1/4 of an inch, or maybe 1/2 of an inch, I would say. And when I sew that closed, I want to leave a small opening to insert the elastic. So I'm measuring the elastic, and I'm going to use a safety pin to work that elastic through. Just make sure you hold on to the loose end. I've done that too many times. And then you can tie that off and sew that little opening closed. And we have our skirt. She's coming together. It's time to put on the space buns. So now I'm tracing the space buns. I like to use a red marker on brown fabric because it's a similar color and it never shows on the seams, and it just works because you can see it really well. And again, I'm sewing first and cutting afterwards, and I'm snipping the edges for a smooth seam once we've turned it. And you can see I sewed a little bit past the straight edge line on each side of the space buns. And I'm going to turn those right side out and give them a little stuffing, just enough so that those seams are as smooth as possible. And you guys, I have discovered upholstery thread. I love using it for attaching things like space buns because it's so strong. It doesn't get all bunched up and tangled, and it's just a great thread to work with for this kind of thing. And so I'm just doing a baste stitch around the bottom edge of this space bun, and then I pull it tight and tie it off. And I'm just going to keep that thread attached and start a ladder stitch. Once I've positioned the space bun where I want it, I can use a ladder stitch or an invisible stitch to secure that space bun in place. And if you press the space bun down onto the head of the doll, it creates kind of a natural edge that will guide you. And I line up those seams, and I'm just working my way around with that ladder stitch. Tie that stitch off, and I just poke that needle back in and pull the thread through so that you can't see it. And there's our first space bun. Now I'm just doing the same thing to the other side. And this part always feels like a little victory because we're almost done and she's just already looking so cute. But now it's time to embroider her face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place pins where the eyes will go until I'm just comfortable with how it looks. And you can even measure. The eyes will be about 4 centimeters from the neck and 4.5 centimeters from the side of the head. So if you want to be precise, you can measure with your ruler. And I'm just going to take a pencil and trace around that pin head. And then once I have those circles for the eyes, I'm going to do a quarter circle to make her eyelid. So it'll start at the top corner, inner corner of her eye, and then I'll add a little eyelash at the end. And then I like to add a second eyelash. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Now I'm taking some black embroidery thread and I'm pulling apart 2 threads, and I'm going to knot one end small enough to pull through the fabric because you don't want that knot to show. And then I'm going to start at the bottom inner corner of the eye and make a satin stitch on that circle. And then once we've completed the circle of the eye, we're going to go back up to the top of the eyelid and do a stem stitch all the way down until we get to the eyelash. And you can kind of see how I catch that last stitch with a back stitch. And I do the same with the second eyelash. And then I do a disappearing knot. And then I'm going to repeat that process on the other side. Alright, and now I'm just drawing on a little half smile. I like to give her a cute little smirk. And this time I'm using 3 threads to embroider the mouth. And I'm going to knot one end and thread the other. And again, I'm just doing a stem stitch. Whoops. Never panic when you find a little knot in your embroidery thread. Just stick that needle in the loop and give it a gentle tug and usually it'll come right out. But then I'm going to add 1 stitch for the top lip and 1 stitch for the bottom lip. And I'll do a disappearing knot to finish that. And we're going to give her a little bit of blush. Oh, she's so cute. I love it. All we have left now is to make her cute little bow, and then we'll be all done. All right, I'm going to fold the fabric to face itself and trace a bow, and then we'll again sew before we cut. We want to leave a space opened along that bottom narrow edge. Right there, we're going to leave that opened. So we're going to sew along that line, and then we'll cut out our bow. And you can tie this bow to a little elastic or a little hair tie if you want a removable bow, or you can sew it in place. I like to sew it in place just because toddlers, you know, they have a tendency of losing those removable items, and we are making this a toddler-proof doll. So here I'm just, I snipped the corners and some of the curvy edges, and now I've turned the bow and I'm pressing out the edges. Pressing out the seam, sorry. And then I did go to my iron and gave it a pressing. And now I'm just going to knot the bow. This is a little tricky. You have to work it until it's the shape you want. It is a tight knot. So now I'm going to pin this in place and sew it down. And now I'm just knotting it and tucking that tail thread into the fabric before I cut it. And there we go. That is our little rosebud doll, and you can go to my Etsy shop and find the pattern. It's Rosy Dolls by Kate. And thanks for joining me.